Hello, everyone. I'm Alejandro Laplana, founder and CEO of Shockworks. And today I want to talk about why I think profitability is underrated in growth startups and why our company believes that ROI matters now more than ever in order to achieve profitability and take these market conditions as an opportunity to get back in control of your own destiny as a founder. In the past 2 years, we've seen a forced and almost haphazard shift towards sound unit economics and profitability-focused growth in startups earlier than 2021, and arguably since rates were near zero from the early 2000s. Startups were, particularly venture-backed startups, were under the direction to grow at all costs as it would provide outsized returns to their capital partners to compensate for the amount of risk that they're taking. While that approach has historically worked with companies like Amazon or Google, it doesn't work for most, and we're of the opinion that a more founder-centric, profitability-focused approach might be a good North Star for startups post-2021. In terms of specifics, many companies were on, or many startups, growth startups in particular, were building software and building products for the sake of getting a product that they think the market will receive based on what the conditions are at the time, based on a series of hypotheses, some more informed than others. However, as business operators and investors who have worked and invested in over 100 startups and scale-ups, we find that it is a lot more important to align business objectives with technology solutions in that specific order. So you want to think about generating tangible ROI, or understanding that you are meeting customer demands and that they're willing to pay for it before you proceed to hire product and engineering teams, marketing and promotions. So we encourage our partners to put business objectives before making significant expenditures on product. The objective is survival and growth, not build at all costs. We would welcome our clients and partners and just startups in general to be more intentional and in what they build and how they proceed to build it. And now let's talk about the impact of the present market conditions. In today's market, conditions have tightened venture funding significantly, and many startups and scale-ups are faced with the predicament of cost savings versus roadmap objectives and growth. Both scale-ups and startups are having to become more thoughtful about budgets, and as a result are reprioritizing strategic objectives and looking for creative ways to reduce expenditures. At Shockworks, we're uniquely positioned to provide teams that allow scale-ups and startups to grow at a self-paced capacity with flexibility, and while always prioritizing ROI and business objectives. What does that actually mean? It means that you can hire teams based on what situation or specific situation you find yourself in. Do you need to scale up in order to meet customer demands? Do you need to contract because you haven't raised your round of funding or it's fallen short? We can accommodate that, and we feel that that is the future of providing teams and building software and bringing products to market and optimizing them in real time. It's important to be self-paced, and it's important to grow with sound unit economics and predictability, and not just having to fund yourself through equity rounds. Again, it's an easier way to profitability. So now to get tactical and bring this into a set of actionable steps about how companies, startups, scale-ups, growth, all kinds, all colors and sizes, how they can actually find a way or take steps towards profitability. First, it's important to emphasize to understand your unit economics, understand your revenue streams, your cost structures, and your profitability, your margins, so that you can actually understand what you need in order to balance all of these long term. The other one is, again, it brings us back to unit economics, but specifically focusing on your margins and costs. So focus on your margins and costs, find ways where you can streamline costs that are not really necessary. So if you find, for instance, that nearshore teams are just as effective as onshore teams, but you're paying a 3x premium on onshore teams, then that's obviously one thing to consider, right? Finding a partner for this. The other one is probably the third step is prioritizing customer feedback. What does that mean? It means shipping incremental product quickly and improving on demand to make sure that you get to product market fit quicker. And if you're already at product market fit, then doubling down on what already works quickly. The last step you can take is once you've achieved product market fit and once you are scaling, to understand and forecast what that scale implies in terms of investments and expenditures and find ways to streamline them. Again, nearshore teams that can be flexibly positioned on demand can be a great way to scale and contract teams and achieve profitability a few months or years ahead of schedule. So these are some of the steps that you could take to become a profitable organization and take your company in your destiny and the survival of your company in your own hands, and not always have to depend on external rounds of funding to stay alive. Instead, you can allocate that or earmark that exclusively as growth capital. It'll make you sleep better at nights, and it'll also make you more attractive as an investment. So to wrap things up, we discussed unit economics, we discussed understanding and modeling and forecasting expenditures, capital investments, operating expenses, and how to find ways to streamline them and also incorporate flexibility into how you make these investments and apply these expenditures. And finally, finding ways to action specific tactics that are based on user feedback and not just the internal bias of your hypotheses. These are different ways in which startups can go from a growth trajectory to a growth trajectory that factors in profitability at an earlier stage, and to take their destiny into their own hands and not just not rely on outside sources of funding to stay alive, but also to become more attractive investment vehicles, as most of that capital will earmark towards growth.